Hey there. Today I'm kicking off something new, a podcast I want to call Kickin' It with David Akers. I've been fortunate to meet some amazing people during my time in the NFL and in my personal life. And I love hearing these folks' stories, and I want to share those stories with you. We're going to move all around some different topics, but I definitely want to talk football, obviously, some kicking, water skiing, other water-related sports, as well as some auto racing, fitness, and of course, a healthy lifestyle. I want to find out more about these subjects and talk to the different people and understand what they are talking about within these subjects. And of course, talk about products. But I want to do that in an unbiased way. So here we are, kicking it off. Today, we are going to get this thing cranking with Chet Scott. This guy is a multiple-time South Central Regional champ, a two-time national champ, considered the best towboat driver in the world by many, has driven 10 world record-breaking passes for skiers, and known to be the ski setup guru for some of the world's best skiers as well. So welcome, brother. Thanks for being here with us.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Looking forward to getting to kick it with Akers here.
Absolutely. We're kicking it here. And we're kicking off something new, and I'm glad to have you here with us to start this, Chad. And, you know, I'm just going to take the elephant out of the room real quick because I'm an Eagles fan, okay? How in the world are you a Cowboys fan? And you live in New Orleans area.
You know, I was born in Dallas. Most of my family, my dad's side of the family is from Texas. Still have a lot of family and cousins out in Dallas, Texas, and kind of grew up in the Scout House. You were a Cowboys fan. You know, it was on every Sunday, and just kind of the way it was. You know, I am in New Orleans and root for the Saints as long as they're not playing the boys, and but still a Cowboys fan at heart.
Well, it hurts me deeply, but along with that, besides a kicker from the Eagles, who is your favorite, I guess, player kind of growing up? Who did you like in the football world? Who did you kind of idolize? And for what were some of the characteristics that kind of drew you to that person?
So I kind of grew up on Roger Staubach, you know, like the guy's ability to scramble, make plays. You know, he was a military guy. I mean, just everything about Roger, you know, back in the glory days of the Cowboys kind of drew you in. If you were from Dallas, everybody knew who Roger Staubach was. And you know, that's kind of my first early days of being a Cowboys fan was watching, you know, Staubach and Bill Bates and Drew Pearson and, you know, those guys.
Hey, easy on the Drew Pearson now, because he did go into Philly and kind of gave him some noise, you know, and I kind of had to retaliate a little bit when I came back down for the draft. So easy on. I mean, now you're really just ripping at the heart, Chad.
Well, I don't know if you remember our initial conversation. I think CP called me and said, David Akers has some questions about this Goode flex tail. And I'm like, the guy that just trolled my Cowboys in Texas Stadium at the draft? I was like, I don't really know if I can help that guy. I don't know if my conscience will allow me to do that. But
well, so you're bringing up kind of the connection and how we kind of became friends here. And it started off with Chris Parrish, who we're going to get into this a little later on, who you drove to a world record. And so the people that don't know and they're kind of starting to follow this podcast or whatnot, we're talking to Chet Scott, who is a skier, a driver, but also is a guy that's in the world of designing skis as well. And so we're gonna dive into this. But slalom skiing is kind of what you're known for, and the driving and the people that you're driving for in the ski community. And since I retired from the NFL, I've been searching for something And I tried the golf, and I'd go out for 5, 6 hours. I'd practice and do a round, and I'd come home and feel like I really didn't accomplish much, right? And then I had this opportunity to get out and do some skiing. And it was one of those things where I was so exhausted, but I felt like I had such a pump for my body. It was an incredible workout. And the challenge of it physically to me was like, man, that's what I've been missing in the football world. And so one thing that kind of, I guess, catapulted me further was the ski community. So guys like yourself, how I got to meet you through a pro like Chris Parrish, the connection you all had, and then you kind of just brought me in and said, hey, these are some things that you're going to need to do to your ski to kind of help your performance, because let's just be honest, Chad, I kind of suck as a skier compared to all you all. And that's one thing I really want to bring when I watch things on skiers. They really talk about guys that are like 38 off and 39 off skiers, and people might be wondering that. What does that mean, Dave? It basically is you can go through the course, you get around 6 buoys, you go in the gate and you hit the exit gates, and if you make that pass at the top speed of your age group, then you shorten the rope, and then as many buoys you can get on the shortest rope wins, or basically, and whether that's against yourself, your personal best, or in tournaments. So when we come to you and the idea of having you on today, I really felt like, because you're a nemesis foe of the Cowboys, I thought it was kind of ironic to have you on. But you've helped me in the ski world, not only in coaching me as a skier, but teaching me the technical side of it, as far as the ski equipment and things of that nature, but also as a driver. And there's a dance that has to go on between the skier and the driver, and we're going to get into that. But I just wanted to kind of give the background of our relationship and how this started about 3 years ago. So you've told me about the Cowboys, and we'll put that to the side. How did you get into water skiing?
So I kind of grew up, skiing with my dad behind a bass boat, on public water, and kind of the same.
Now, what size engine were you on with that on a bass boat?
Probably like a 150 Johnson or Evinrude. This is my dad's bass boat. And
sounds like a country song.
Yeah, just, making a big spray on the river and then drinking the rest of the day. So, I was pretty competitive in college, playing intramural sports, and played high school ball, and kind of like you at a different level, just looking for something to kind of keep those competitive juices going. And one day on the river skiing with a guy, he's like, have you ever been on a slalom course? And I was like, no, but I mean, I can rip out here on the river. I can make a big spray. And I remember the guy took me to this slalom course, which was kind of off the interstate in Baton Rouge. And I was like, well, how fast you going? He's like 36. And I'm like, all right, I'll go 36.
First off, nobody has a clue. Do you driving in a car at 36 miles an hour? You get on a ski at 36 miles an hour, and it is a whole different perspective. Go ahead.
But I was a pretty good Wally river rat. I could turn the ski and turn and burn. And so this guy's got a Mastercraft ski boat. I think he's the coolest guy out there. And he goes 36. I think he runs 28 or 32 miles, 32 off at the time. And, I'm looking at him like, man, I do this on the river all day long. And he pulls me through the course at 32. I turn in for the gate, and like one ball was about 6 feet behind me. I was nowhere near getting outside of one or turning. I was like, oh man, like this is hard. So slowed the boat down. I think he probably swerved me through 6 or 7 buoys, and oh man, I was just hooked, because it's like, damn, this is fun.
I feel
and
like
again, it was competitive,
Absolutely. I kind of feel that's the same thing that you, internally, I think the people that get involved in the skiing, I heard Chet Raleigh talk about this, and we'll get into Chet in a little bit as well, but Chet basically said, I think the Men's Health magazine, he said, why do people want to get on a ski and go through the ski course? Because they have an adrenaline rush and they want to feel propelled. And it's great when you're locked and loaded. It's not so much when you go out the front. But I think there's something to that with Chet. There's a moment of being a little bit like, oh my gosh, you're on the brink of doing something crazy. And then when you get to the next buoy, you're like, oh, this is awesome. And then you're going across, you're like, this is still crazy. But I think that's kind of the connection I see for myself is trying to get better each and every time I'm out there, and knowing that it's so difficult to do. And I'd say that's probably one of the challenges with the sport, because it's not easy. There's definitely growing pains to go through this. You don't see yourself hitting that summit at a quick rate. But when you have a great ski community, if you can expand on this, I kind of look at like the locker room. And when people ask me, what do I miss about the NFL? I generally say it's the locker room. Obviously, the game checks as well, but the locker room, you can't get that camaraderie anywhere else. And I will say that the best thing for me post-retirement to keep that kind of going has been the water ski community.
Well, I think, as you grow up, get older, you kind of have two sets of, I guess, friends or social life, and usually one revolves around your profession, and then two revolves around what you do as a hobby, whether it's golf or whatever. And exactly probably what has drawn me into this sport and just keeping it going for all these years is just what you said. It's the community, it's the relationship, it's the people. Having been competitive for probably 25 years now, I've got people all across the country that I consider dear friends. I mean, we have a common interest. We talk all the time about skiing, skis, who's doing this, who's doing that. And it just, more than anything, I think it's the relationships that you develop on and off the water that keep you coming back for more.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of those relationships, I'm assuming you have some great relationships with the people that you have driven to 10 world records. Can you give me the highlights of those times?
Probably the first, I started driving, just out of necessity, because I was skiing with Ben Favre, and he was at the time a really, high rated open skier. And I mean, I felt like I was a decent driver. And I actually drove Ben to tie the world record years ago, probably like 2002 or 2003. And he ran, I think, 1:43, which tied Jeff Rogers' record. Is a big deal. It was at that point that I realized that I'm not that good of a driver, because the record got turned down. And, Ben having been a really dear friend of mine, I just felt like I let him down. And, it was a big moment in his life, and kind of being part of it, I was like, God, man, that's never going to happen to me again, because I just felt awful. So I worked really hard on driving, and
so when you let me stop. So when you work hard on driving, what did that mean to you? Like, I'm going to go out and drive better today. Well, what were you inputting into yourself physically, mentally, strategically through the course?
Well, I think one was I was a relatively decent skier, short line skier. Skied into 38, 39 when I started driving. Understood kind of the dynamics of what at least I wanted as a skier to happen at the end of the rope, and then kind of got involved with like really perfecting the craft and driving tournaments and going home after the tournament, getting my boat path, and just really looking to see what I was doing, when I was doing it, and really taking input from lots of really good skiers. At the time, Chris Paris was down here skiing a lot. Ben Favre was still, really formidable. And I had the opportunity to pull some really good skiers early on. And I don't think I ever got out of the boat and wasn't asking. Nobody really wants to tell you, well, Chad, you really suck, or that feels terrible.
They just say that to me when I drive.
But the ski community is always like, oh, no, that felt fine. And, like, no, dude, like, you got to tell me. I want to be better. So just kind of that way, and because I, was a short line skier, I think my knowledge base was higher than a lot of drivers out there, because I knew what it felt like.
So when you first When you first started skiing, the driver, there was not GPS in the boat, right? So back then, the driver had a hand on the throttle and a hand on the steering wheel, and they were working you to try to keep you maintaining at 36 miles an hour, correct?
Yes. When I got my driver's rating, I was a manual. We had to throttle, steer. We did it all back then.
And it progressed into what was called perfect pass, correct?
And that was automated speed control, where all you had to do now was steer and try to keep it in the center.
And then that took us to today's version of what we call the zero off or ZO. That is basically you plug in the speed you want, you plug in how you even want the pull type to affect the skier, and start the boat up, go, and then it's up to your steering ability, basically, not as far as controlling the speed with the throttle during the course, obviously. But that kind of leads us into, I guess, kind of another area with this. So you had those 10 world records. Can you kind of go through some of those skiers that made you, what made that day better for a Chris Parrish or Nate Smith or Regina or some of the other people that you've worked through?
Well, early on, I was skiing, and Chris Parrish was coming here a lot. We were skiing and training together, and he would come down a lot, and I was really working hard on driving him. And Parrish was probably one of the most technical skiers out there. Felt everything. So he really educated me a lot on what it would take for him to run 41 off, with me at the wheel. So we kind of worked on perfecting that. I would look at in-course video to make sure I was dialed in, and never in my wildest dreams did, I think we were shooting for a world record. I mean, it was here at the ski ranch in Covington, which is a beautiful man-made site owned by the Claire and Dave DePaul. I mean, it's a beautiful place. These guys built this place for just that, world record skiing. And here we are, Parrish and I think the first round, I think he tied the world record, which was 1.5. And then the second round, he ran 2. And it was just like, and I remember my first thought was, oh, heck, like I need to go check the boat path. Like I need to go look at this. At this time, I didn't even know like really what it took. So I looked at it right away.
So along with that, people that have no idea about driving, you're driving down in between boat guides, and there's a tolerance level of how much you can be off one way or another. So you can't really be swerving in and out to help the guys. So if you can explain just the slightest bit of that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so the tolerance at any single buoy is 20 centimeters, which is not a whole lot when you're pulling a guy like Chris Parrish, who's 210 pounds, torquing the boat, 800-900 pounds of pressure he puts on it once he turns the boat. So you can move up to 20 centimeters at one buoy, but through the course of all 6 buoys, you can only move a total of 49 centimeters. So the cumulative deviation is pretty tough to stay within when you're pulling somebody like that that's turning the buoy 4.5, 5 feet short of the rope to reach. I mean, it's all he's got to get his legs, ski, and feet outside the buoy, and then turn and get enough torque and pressure on the boat to go to the next side. So when you're pulling those guys, 20 centimeters is not a lot.
Oh,
so
no, not at all. And it's interesting. The first time I actually sat in a boat and watched a professional skier, I was blown away because truly, when they got around the buoy, the line was that much short. They were parallel to the center pylon of the boat. And I, in my mind at that point, I had never really, I guess, conceptualized somebody swinging out so far to the point where at 43 off, I was in a boat where Nate could have just jumped in the boat with us after he got around the 2-ball. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is nothing on camera gives you the perspective as sitting in an observer seat.
Nothing. And then as a driver, you mentioned how high they come on the boat. Like I said, the first person I ever pulled through 41 and had done it in practice was Ben Favre. And he always wore these bright yellow shorts when he skied. And I would be looking straight down the lake, but I could see, like, I guess feel and see, but I could always like see those yellow shorts because that's how high he was advancing on the boat as he was turning. And, like I said, a camera, there's nothing to really capture what it takes to actually run 41 off the way these guys are doing it at 36 miles an hour. It's truly incredible the way that they do it.
It's crazy. So you had Chris Parrish and you did Nate as well, correct?
I did Nate. I think I did Parrish. And then a couple of years later, Nate at the same lake at the ski ranch. Actually, both, I think Parrish and Nate were both there, and both had been tearing it up all week, both running 41s. But, just it was really a fun week of skiing and driving the guys because, they were running 41 every set. And Nate ends up running 2.5 at 43 off, which is today the current world record.
Crazy. And then you've
I think that was in 2010.
And you've also obviously taken Regina Jaquez, who is arguably not only the best women's skier of all time, but pound for pound, as a 34-mile-an-hour skier and just ability, she's might be the best skier of all time, arguably, obviously.
Absolutely. When I first pulled her, she had tied the world record, which was 1 at 41 off at the time, which had previously been held by Christy Overton. I think she had tied it once before, and then she had come to a tournament here at the ski ranch as well and tied the world record again while I was driving, and then ended up, going to several record tournaments throughout the years and, having the opportunity to drive quite a bit and has set several world records behind me.
That's amazing, Chad. Again, a lot of people say that you are the best driver in the world. Obviously, there's people have reasons for that, but when you've driven 10 world records, that definitely adds it up. So with that, I know you have to have some mentors that are out there that you really think kind of develops you not only as a skier, but maybe as a driver and even into the world of what you're doing with Malibu boats and with Goode. But I know two of those would be Mike Munn and Chet Raleigh. Can you kind of give me a little bit of the background on those guys and who they are and what they mean to you?
So Mike Munn, I moved to Houston in 1997 from Covington. Like I said, I didn't start kind of competing water ski until 95. So in 97, I moved to Houston following my employment. Met Mike Munn at a tournament. He was running a ski school over in Houston. At that time, I was probably a mid 35 off 36 mile an hour men's 2 guy, and started skiing with Mike Munn over at a lake called Banana Bend on the east side of Houston. Mike ran a ski school. I told him I could drive and pull him and all that. And it was at that point that I realized that I wasn't a very good driver. Because every time I'd pull Mike, he would ask me in the proper Queen's English, Mike being from England, if I'd ever driven a boat before. So, I figured if I still wanted to have a place to ski, I'd better get better. And, as a result of skiing in Houston, met a whole slew of folks over in Houston that are good friends of mine today. But Mike was really influential because he was a great eye. He actually taught my son Tyler how to ski on the weeks he was spending with me in Texas. And, because of what Mike did, Tyler's a multiple time national record holder, 4-time national champion. And really, he owes all that he did skiing to Mike Munn. He was an incredible eye, great coach, one of my great friends to this day. And that's really when I got into really starting to seriously ski was when I was in Houston skiing with Mike Munn, Jeff Greathouse, David West, Mike McCormick. Those guys, they competed every set. And It's like what you said you got into skiing for. Even it was just to have that camaraderie and that kind of burning desire to compete with those guys, like every time you got on the water.
And you're talking about Tyler. I mean, obviously, your son now is out in Colorado as an orthopedic surgeon, basically replacing. He's sawzalling hips basically on a daily basis, right? So it's crazy what he's doing now. But I know as a dad, you got to be extremely proud.
Oh, absolutely.
But as a kid, you've shared with me before. He was 13 years old. He ran a couple at 39 off, didn't he, in nationals?
Yeah, 13 years old. He ran 2 at 39 off at nationals in Bakersfield. To kind of put that in perspective, in the whole tournament, there was only 6 38 offs run in the entire nationals.
And he's
And
13.
A 13-year-old.
That's when I say, all right, I'm picking up chess. I'm out. I'm done. The kid's already whipping my tail,
He never skied at the same speed, so I could always claim that I was better.
Of course. Now, how about your relationship with Chet Raleigh? And again, I'm going to let some of these people know Chet Raleigh is a ski coach, but still competes in his 60s right now and can get into 41 off as a skier. I personally go down and learn from him. I feel that he has such a great knowledge and has a great way of dealing with his students. But I was just kind of curious because you, as well as Regina and some of the other people that we're friends with, kind of steered me down there to his coaching. But I was curious on how your all's relationship developed.
Well, we talked about this earlier, but Chet and I had an instant connection because he's also not an Eagles fan. He's a Cowboys fan.
Come on, man. I would normally let you all have it, but we're not doing that well this year either. But
I could barely watch him this year. But Chet's from Texas. Kind of met Chet coming up through the ranks skiing. Met him at tournaments. Stood on the dock with him. Got to talk to him. I mean, like you said, you've been down there a few times. Have you ever seen anybody more passionate about coaching, skiing, helping people get better than Chet Raleigh?
It doesn't matter who you are. It really doesn't matter who you are. He gives you the same energy every single time. And that's why, I've sent a couple of people down there, and one came back, his quote was, "It was life-changing as a skier." So keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
No, he is. And, he studies the sport. He's, really, there are people that you need to ski with at whatever level, just to continue to hone your technique and the things that you can do to get. I mean, we're all out there to get one more buoy, right? That's why we're there. And, when you get to ski with somebody like Chet or, Mike or Nate Smith or CP, you can always take something away from it. But like you said, Chet Raleigh, you can show up at 7:30 and you're going to get this burst of energy at 7:30 in the morning. If you show up at 3:30, you're going to get that same burst of energy from Chet. It amazes me every time I'm around him how he just continues with that level of positivity and energy throughout the day. And again, one of my favorite people in the world to go ski with, one of my great friends, and one of my fellow Cowboys fans.
Yeah, I agree. If you can catch Chet at 3:30, that he's not actually out surfing by that point, that is. Okay, so we have, those two guys, but there's another huge influencer in your life that we lost this year with Dave Goode, who tragically passed away earlier. And 2020 just seems to keep giving, unfortunately. But can you kind of go into the relationship with Dave Goode and what he has kind of brought into your life as far as skiing, ski development, and obviously the friendship that you all had?
So I met Dave back in 1994. I think, as I said, I was skiing with Ben Favre at the time. Ben came over to the lake, was riding this Goode ski that nobody had ever heard of. And was skiing. I mean, he's bragging about it. And he's like, "Here, take it for a whirl." At this time, man, I was chasing like my first EP, which back then the EP was the rating you needed to qualify for nationals.
I got you.
So I'm chasing tournaments, trying to qualify for nationals. And Ben says, "Ride my ski." At this time, I don't know. I'm on a Conley, out of the box. Don't know anything about fin setup. Okay, I jump on it, bends ski, bends boots, bends everything. And I skied about 3 buoys, and I was skiing better than I was skiing on my own ski. And I'm like, man, this thing is crazy. And the first thing I noticed about it was how light it was. And, it was just like game changing at the time. And this was the Goode 9100 that Ben had.
Okay.
So I picked up the phone. Ben gave me the number. I called. I actually talked to Dave Goode himself. I called the company and get Dave Goode on the phone. Like, crazy. So he gives me a cell phone and guarantees me if I get this ski, I'll get to the nationals. Well, I only have like 2 months to qualify. So sure enough, I get on the skis. First tournament I ride it. I get 2 at 35 off, which at the time was what it took to qualify. Go to another tournament, get it again. So man, he was right. I qualified for nationals, and it was that moment, like, just started talking to Dave. He would call regularly just to check on the ski and how things were going. And over the years, I rode the 9100, the 9200, the 93. I've ridden every ski Dave's ever made. And over the years, as my abilities got better, and I started to become pretty competitive in men's two. Was top seed for several years, and really Dave taught me everything I know about skis and ski setup, and I didn't grow up skiing on a course. I grew up turning beer cans on the river, so I had a lot of flaws in my technique. So I had to learn how to set up a ski and make it work for me. And all of that was taught to me by Dave. We talked over the years, and it just developed like every other relationship in skiing, just developed into, he wasn't just the guy building the skis. He was a friend, and one of my best friends to the day he passed away. And Dawn, they're just family friends, and a great deal of gratitude to what he did for me throughout my skiing career, and allowing me to be part of Goode Skis and the company, and learning the things that I learned. So again, it's all about relationships and what we develop in this small community.
Oh, absolutely. So you all, a couple of years ago, surprised me because I was trying to obviously get better and trying to figure out if there's a certain ski that I could perform better on. That's how we're always searching. Is it you, the talent, or as the carpenter, or is it the tools? And you and Dave Goode were instrumental in obviously coming up with a ski for me that actually, I know it just burned you to the core to hand me over an Eagle ski, but I've enjoyed, progressing in the course on that Eagle ski, and I'm very appreciative of Dave Goode for that, and for you for giving me that opportunity to ride on one. But I've got some questions that I've kind of gotten from some different skiers of different abilities around that I just met over the years. And so I'd like to kind of ask you, and we're going to bounce between ski setup to driving to ski techniques and things like that. But one of them comes from Pete Shoemaker. And this is a great question, I think, because as a driver, and a wannabe driver myself, anytime I get on a lake, I want somebody to say, hey, I want you to drive me. Not like, oh, hey, can you film for me? Because ultimately, I think it's a compliment, to say, yeah, I feel like you can be a better driver without going to the ski school swerve necessarily, but being a good driver can dance with the skier. So Pete's question is this: can you kind of give me the setup that in your mind, you've got a skier back there, you're prior to hitting the pre-gates, then the gates, and then going into buoy number one. What is your kind of mindset up of what you want the boat to be doing, what you're feeling, if you can go into that?
Well, funny you ask that, because really the gates and the pre-gates are kind of my pet peeves as a skier. So, I mean, the purpose for the gate and the pullout is obviously to develop enough width on your pullout to start the course. So for me as a driver, I want to make sure that when that skier moves out for the gates, that I'm providing a solid platform or post for that person to pull upon when he pulls out for the gates. One of the things that drives me crazy is when I pull out for the gate and I feel the boat come with me. Even if it's just 6, 7 inches, if I pulled that boat off center, then it has changed the way I'm going to move and advance out on the gate. The other thing that I find that happens when the boat gets pulled left as I'm pulling out is that while I'm in my glide, setting up, probably the most important part of the course for me, the gates and one ball, is that now I pulled the boat over 6 inches. Now the driver is trying to find the center while I'm in my glide, making the rope tighter in my hand or whatever. So really, as a driver, for me, I want to be solid from the start. So I probably, if anything, err a little bit left at the pre-gate. So when I feel you pressuring the rope to pull out, I kind of counter or steer away from you just a touch. But I think that gives you a really solid base as you're pulling out and maybe assists you in getting to that point you want to get. But the most important reason I do that is because when I get to the gates with the boat, wherever I'm at, I don't want to move, especially for a right foot forward skier. Because if I'm too far over to the right and you're going into one ball, then I'm moving left as you're going into your offside turn. That drives me crazy. Like as soon as I feel the handle, it's a turn that it's not my best side. So
nor mine.
I want to be really still gates to one. I want to be unnoticed by the skier.
So as a rookie driver, I think there's a tendency for a lot of guys, if I watch videos of other skiers at a public lake or just novice drivers, not a ski tournament, I seem to see the kind of the whitewash and even into the dip, even up to the bump, being over towards that right first, buoy number one, right by that boat guide. And so something is happening through pre-gates and gates, and they're sliding over, whether it's just they're tracking for the through the course. What do you feel is a way that some of these novice guys, and even myself and other guys I see, can improve on that?
Well, I think it's just that the course starts when you get to the pre-gate. It starts with the gate pullout. So, and I think what you just said is what I see a lot. I watch a lot of in-course video of drivers that will get pulled left, and then they end up overshooting and overcorrecting into the gates, trying to get straight from where they got pulled, and you end up overshooting it. The skier turns in for the buoy. Then it becomes sort of a negative swing because he realizes, oh, I went too far right, now I got to go left. And it just kind of gets into a little bit of a negative energy with the skier. So I think regardless of where you end up, gates to one, you need to just be still. Don't overreact. I mean, you got to own what you did and, always shoot for center. But I'm not going to punish the skier as a driver for my bad setup if I can help it.
So what are you trying when you're, say you're just out, you're driving Nate Smith, Regina, Chris, whoever, or even Chet for that matter, and you're driving them and you're trying to give them feedback of their skiing. What are you trying to feel as a driver, and what are you trying to then tell them? Because I mean, even a few years ago when you and I skied, you're like, I don't want to see that back shoulder. I want you to hide that. I shouldn't be able to see that in the mirror, blah, blah, blah. What are you trying to feedback in when they're feeling them being picked up on the boat? If you can go into that.
Well, basically, like I said, I've had the opportunity to drive a lot of really good skiers over the years. I've driven several pro events where I've driven all the open skiers, and it's taught me more about skiing just from what I feel on the boat. I mean, the really good skiers, the Nate Smiths, the Will Ashers, the JT, Parrish, they all stay connected. They always know where the boat is. And anytime you sort of spike.
So when you're saying connected, again, for us Wally skiers here, that means the rope and handle is tight, or what are you meaning exactly by being connected?
You can always like feel them with some sort of pressure on the pylon. Like you can always, from the seat of your pants in the driver's seat, you can always like feel and know where the skier is. I think as the abilities get less, less dialed in, skiers lose that connection. They're really hard on and hard off. That's me. And you just lose the ability as you're driving forward to feel or know where they're at. So if I don't know where you're at on the rope or advancing on the buoy, I can't do anything. I've just got to wait for you to get back on the line, because I can't make a move as a driver, whether it be to try to slightly tighten the rope up at the end of the turn, if I don't know where you're at in the turn, because I can't feel you. So
that goes to a ski question. How do you tell a younger skier or an inexperienced novice, intermediate? Because again, I'm trying to talk through these type of podcasts because I believe like when I listen to the real professionals, they talk over a level where a majority of us skiers are. I mean, we're not at Chad's rate, so we're down here at Wally level. So I know I lose connection. And a lot of times you're telling me I'm losing that coming off the second wake. So is there one kind of thought process that you can tell people to help keep connection?
Well, I think, your comment earlier about Chet saying we all want to be propelled, right? That we enjoy that feeling of being propelled is like not getting in a position where we super load the rope or lean really hard at one time. It's more of a progressive movement, where we can stay and we can control that speed, and we can control the amount we're propelled, because you mentioned earlier zero off speed control. If you at 185, 90 pounds pull really hard, really quick for a split second, well, that computer is going to feel it. It's going to feel the boat coming back and slowing down. And this next move is going to be make up that ground that you just took away from it. Mm-hmm. So I remember when zero off came out, a lot of people, bigger guys, kind of like myself and Parrish, struggled with zero off because it reacted so quickly, where perfect pass was slower to react. And I remember Chet telling me years ago, and makes sense as a driver and a skier, is don't freak that little guy out in the computer. Because if you freak him out, he's going to give it to you. So with that being said, I think you want to make those moves and be controlled in what you're doing. Don't ever try to get everything back. Because I think as a intermediate skier, we've got a picture that we have, and we want to get it right then and right there. And if you get it too fast, then I'm going to take it away, because my little computer is going to say, you shouldn't have done that, and I'm going to hit the gas on you.
Interesting. Yeah, it's great. I wish that I visually see it, but I get into scramble mode. It's like squirrel, and then I'm disconnected and I'm done.
Well, we all do, and it's a matter of just figuring out how to scramble without doing it just in one split second.
No, you're right on that, and I think that's been probably one of my biggest growths this year is trying to stay connected just a little bit longer, continue to go outbound. Our next question comes from Mickey Thompson, from one of my ski buddies down at Area 41. Can you explain the difference in why people need to be more of, in your opinion, a one-handed driver versus a two-handed driver as a towboat guy?
Well, I think two things. Number one is, if you're driving, like I said, I drive primarily by feel. I want you to line me up. Like I said, I want to feel the tension on the pylon. I also want to feel the tension on the rudder. I think once you add a second hand to that, you're kind of losing some of the feel on the rudder and losing the ability. It's a lot quicker to react with one hand than two. And plus, from a safety standpoint, which I've seen this happen, a guy gets caught up in the rope or several years ago, Tyler Scott was skiing here at the ski ranch, got the rope completely wrapped around him. Thomas Moore, a professional skier in his own right back in the day, was driving and was quick enough to have the wherewithal. His hand was on the throttle. He threw that boat in reverse at 36 miles an hour. And if you got both hands here on the wheel, you're not getting to there. But for me as a driver, I want to be able to feel everything. And I think one hand allows you to do that. And I'm not a driver that steers a lot. So I want to feel the rudder. I want to feel kind of the movements of the skier, and I want to be able to make subtle movements on the wheel, which I think are slowed down when you got to move both elbows and and make a different sort of move.
So you just said, and again, this might be so novice of a question, but you just showed your hands and your movements. How much do you think you actually move the steering wheel with your one hand as you're going through the course? If you're just like,
less than this is it. I when I got into driving and was invited years ago by Dana Reed started the pro ski tour, ended up passing away of cancer. Dana Reed taught me something years ago. Less is more. So he always believed, and guys get in my boat and sometimes think I've got too much torque on the rudder and this, that, and the other. The reason is I don't want to drive. I don't want to steer. And Dana Reed, he said, people think we're the best drivers in the world. We're just the best pit crew. So we'll take a boat, and I want to set that boat up to where I don't have to steer. I want to feel, and I want to make subtle movements, because my job, to me as a driver, is to be invisible.
Absolutely. And I think it's a great point that less is more, which kind of, again, I know you love being considered a skier. You want to ski way more than you want to drive. I mean, we've had that conversation.
I'm not a driver, I'm a skier.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that talking about skiing and improving, you and I have had this discussion. Scott Tynan with Nate Smith kind of helped Nate through the course at different line lengths. And the question came up was, do you advocate moving the boat a little bit in a coaching and teaching situation for the skier to help improve their abilities down the course?
Absolutely, 100%. I remember coming up early, skiing against guys and like Mike Munn and another friend of mine, Scott Greenwood. Early on, he was an advocate of running lots of back-to-backs, and he was the one that told me, he's like, all you need is the picture, right? Like, the struggle in the course is knowing what that picture is. So as even my son was coming up, Tyler, I always wanted to give him that picture, whether it was at the next line length, whether it was from 28 to 32 off, 32 to 35. I would move the boat all over. I wanted him to run it, see it, feel the speed, feel, what changed from rope length to rope length. But more importantly, especially with the younger kids, is the ability to see it, get that visual picture in their mind, and then know how to navigate it. So, as Scott did, and he and I've talked about it with Nate over the years, I've done it with my son. I've done it with people I ski with. Once you see that picture and realize what it takes to get through those 6 buoys, then as the boat straightens up, you're still going to know that picture, right? You're still going to know, because I think what happens as the rope gets shorter is that we all are looking for an earlier or a better picture than we really need to run that pass. Because if you watch the Nate Smiths or the Parishes or the Freddie Winters, those guys aren't backside buoys. They know the picture. One of the things watching the Mastercraft Pro a few weeks ago was watching Freddie Winter run a couple of 39s that I thought he was just done, got down course, but he knew that picture. He didn't panic, got the ski between him and the boat, and he took it to the next side. And you see that with Nate Smith, and, you never see Nate panic no matter what happens. He always works in the same spot. He knows what picture early or late it will take to run that pass, and they manage to get it done. Where I think a lot of us, including myself, if I don't see the buoy way out in front of me and I'm not turning, then I start to panic. Which
That's me. that's definitely me. So I think that's a great idea, and it helps, obviously, as you say, see the picture. So I guess that along that same line, this comes from a guy named Leonard Bonacci. Leonard and I kind of grew up in the football world together, and we talked about skiing as we've both have improved. But his question is this, because again, you set up skis, you helped me tremendously on my ski. Do you think that the onset of ability to ski at a certain level, entry level kind of, or let's call it into mid 22 off of that range at 34 miles an hour, do you think that it's imperative to really know how to fine tune the binding and the fin settings on those kind of entry level, or is it really doesn't matter just as long as you're on a ski that's more capable for your abilities?
I would say, fin setup is, to me, more or less to make up for deficiencies in our technique and styles. I mean, I've seen really good skiers jump on anybody's ski and ski pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that most of the ski companies have a really good range of factory fin setups that they found that, for the most part, work to make that ski perform, at an optimum level. I think always with anything, whether it's tennis, golf, I think you can always fine tune things. But I think that skis today, I mean, everybody makes a good ski, and it's just kind of preference of what feels the best to you. But I think as you advance with your technique and you start chasing those other goals, that it is important to start learning how to make that ski work better for you.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And since we're talking about skis here, one of the questions came in and said, Goode is viewed as one of the top skis manufacturers basically in the world. The question is, would it benefit them to create an entry-level ski for skiers that are like a 15, 22, 28 off, kind of like where you see other manufacturers that do that? If you look at like a Radar or an HO and some of those lines where they have different level skis, that as they improve, they go up in technology and they get some of those better skis. But do you think, is that something that maybe Goode is losing out on, or is this, what do you see the differences between those ski? Again, they're coming from novice kind of questions here, are novice skiers that are seeing different things and wondering from a brand perspective why certain things are done.
Well, no, that's a great question because, since Dave's passing, like I said, I've been very good friends with Dave and Dawn, and I've kind of taken a role in helping with the customer service side of Goode Skis in Dave's absence. And what I learned in the last 6 months that I didn't really know is that the skis that Goode's building is for that person that you're talking about. As I take calls and listen to people, and I came to thought that me and Chet and Parrish and Regina and Dave Miller and Badal were all very important to Goode Skis until I realized that we are not the customer. We are not who Dave Goode was building skis for. When Dave started building skis, he was building them for Dave Goode. And, as you talk to people and you realize that, although this is a performance ski and it's done very well throughout the ski community, I think what Dave's done is make a ski and design and construction that helps that novice skier manage the course much better, whether it's because the skis are really light, the way they perform. So, I think that Goode is doing that. I think that the target for Goode Skis is that person that you're talking about.
So I've been riding a Goode for the last basically 2.5 years, and I've I've had some success on that ski. And for me, again, being a novice guy, there are a lot of things that I really have liked on that ski. And then there's things that are out there. And again, I want to, with doing this, I want to real talk to people and ask sometimes the questions that aren't enjoyable for people. But the knock isn't the performance on Goode Skis. The knock is the amount of money for these handcrafted skis that they don't necessarily last as long because of rope pops and when the handle hits it and it takes the chunk out. And so I'm going to ask one of the guys that is connected with Goode, even though I've had success with it, why should somebody buy that when they say maybe that the talk out there is that they're not as durable as some of the other manufacturers? What's the response to that?
Well, I mean, having been on Goode Skis since the 9100, I've never found durability to be an issue. I mean, I understand that, you get rope pops, you get rope dings. Dave's philosophy or theory when he started building skis was performance over appearance. I think if back in the day, Dave would have painted the whole thing black and just put an orange sticker on it. He wanted to keep the weight down. He wanted to make it very, very strong. He wanted to make the ski rebound a certain way. His entire, like I said, he was building skis for him to beat people that were technically better than him. He wanted to beat them with equipment. So when he was designing the ski for himself, it was performance based. And, you can add all these additives that make the ski look really, really pretty and, maybe last longer. But, anytime you run over the rope and the boat's going 34 miles an hour and you got 7-8 feet of slack in the line and the boat's not stopping and you are and the handle hits it, I've fallen.
So I'll start recording.
All right,
there.
Let's see how this goes here.
Oh God, like it's going to be gone. But, I think from a durability standpoint, I mean, they get nicks and cuts on them. And, we have a team at the factory that does a really good job of bringing them back to life if need be. And, as long as they don't affect the performance, that was Dave's main goal, was to build you a performance ski that, like you said, at whatever level, entry level, intermediate level, allowed you to perform better than you could on something else.
Interesting there. And then I guess ultimately, is there anything other in your ski, I guess, if you're looking at your accomplishments, one of the guys you really looked up to skiing was Jeff Rogers. Is there a better moment to you in your accomplishments when you were able to defeat Jeff, who was a professional skier, at the Big Dog tournament? Is that your highlight, if you will, or what's your highlight, I guess? To me, that would probably be me to, if I go back to playing in the NFL and I kind of beat the guy I looked up to and would train with or whatever, and knowing that guy was a multiple-time Pro Bowler or something of that nature, and say, man, I accomplished something today. I got that guy. So to me, that would be kind of, looking at some of your bio, that would be kind of it. But I'm curious where it is for you.
Honestly, that was a huge day. Jeff Rogers is, I mean, good God, he's an amazing skier. One of the first people that ever run 41 at 36 miles an hour. I mean, just a phenomenal water skier and a great person at that. So the North Carolina Big Dog, where I got through, man, it wasn't just Rogers, Badal, who's another, just a freaking monster in the Big Dog series. That was probably one of the better days, but I've got to tell you, probably my most prized accomplishment throughout all the skiing. And that was a great day. In fact, my son Tyler called me after the Big Dog. I ran 39 all 4 rounds of the finals and gotten to 3 out of 4 rounds against Badal and Rogers. And my son Tyler told me to quit that day.
You can't have a better day than that, Dad.
Like, that's it.
He's calling you it.
But man, I was the top seed at nationals for about the last 5 years of my men's 36-mile-an-hour career, and then I was top seed, I think, every year men's 3, and I think I had 4 first place ties where I got beaten runoffs. One time by Badal, which he never lets me live down. But capturing that first national title took me till the very last year in men's 3. I mean, gone the whole time of being really the top ranked men's skier, of that division, and never being able to pull it out at the nationals. So national titles, I don't care what anybody says, they're freaking hard to come by. And, it's got to be that guy on that day with those conditions. And, so for me, probably my most prized moment was my first national title, because I chased it for so long. And it was such a hard one to get. I've won, I think, 6 stops on the Big Dog Series, and but those are multiple round tournaments, which that's the most fun I've had in skiing. The Big Dog Series is what kept me rolling. I mean, I love the competition, but a national title is a tough one to get. And when I came up, men's 3 was like the premier. My first year in men's 3, there was 185 competitors at nationals.
That's awesome.
I was always kind of sought after title, and for me, that was the toughest and the most rewarding one that I got.
So I would say this, I think one of the things, and as we wrap this up, the NFL, again, for me, the locker room, I said, is what I miss. The weekend warrior guys that I'm seeing in the ski community and have brought me in and said, hey, they've been extremely helpful in technique, driving, places to go, places to ski, obviously setup, and the book of knowledge. And I just have to say thank you to guys like yourself and the people that you've introduced me to a host of different people as well. And so when I was kind of thinking about kicking this thing off here today and having you a part of it, I think the interesting thing that people need to know is that we all have kind of a story in our weekend warrior lives or our professional careers as an athletes or whatever, but how we go into it. And I'd love to talk more at a different time, even to the way that people train, training regimens, is on the water, off the water, maintaining weight, because there is a little nuance to that as well. You don't usually see many sumo wrestlers out there water skiing, but I believe this is a sport that was really big when I was younger. You see it on TV, on ESPN, and you don't see it now on there at all. But you'll see cornhole, you'll see spike ball, and then now the Olympics is allowing breakdancing in, but there's no skiing. So part of my want to do this is to kind of bring the sporting community together, let them know that there are these really incredible weekend warriors out there that are doing some amazing things and being propelled, and a lot of people don't know about it anymore. Whether we're talking water skiing, then there's the three different events between trick, jump, and slalom. We've been talking really about slalom skiing today, even though you drive guys in all the different events. But I think there's so much that is still out there that in the sporting world that I getting my own kids into it and seeing their progression. They're not 13 years old running 39 off, but they went in and had their first tournament this year and had success. And even their own little ski community was very inclusive. So I want to thank you again for what you've been able to bring to my life with this, and then sharing that network of people that you have that hopefully I can kind of have a little bit of an outside influence with the NFL coming in as well. But thanks, Chad. If you have any other final comments before we head out of here?
No, my final comments are just that. I mean, as a competitive skier myself, I mean, just to see somebody like yourself with your credentials, I mean, obviously a professional athlete, and grew up making a living at playing sports, to see your passion for what we do, and
the sport is not easy, by the way.
What's that?
Sport is not easy by everything that you think. And this is one thing I was going to share earlier. everything that I think that gives you power, base, strength in skiing based on other athletic sports is the exact opposite. It's counterintuitive to anything that you think out there. And I think that is one of the most intriguing but yet frustrating things to work on, because you have a little bit over 16 seconds to make it all happen, and then you're done. And then you got to do it again. And so it's such a moving target that I feel, again, like, squirrel, what just happened? But again, thank you again for that.
Well, you always end up in failure no matter what. Like you always want one more buoy, but I think the reason you've been so welcomed by this community is because just your passion about everything. And for us, it's enjoyable to see somebody who's had the career that you've had, the obviously Hall of Fame accomplishments, to enjoy what we enjoy, and to share in what we life on the lake, right? I mean, that's what it's all about, and making friends. And I've enjoyed all of our conversations about skiing and watching videos. I know you think you're not that good, but you've progressed quite well, and none of us progress as fast as we want to. So keep on repping it. And listen, I'd like to thank you for including me in the first episode of Kicking It with Akers. I mean, we kick it all the time anyway on the phone. So this was a lot of fun, and I look forward to future episodes.
I'm just really, really thankful that you're not charging me per video that sends you for coaching. So I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much. Great having you on, and thank you guys for tuning in.